Hi everyone, this is Krista Moore with the Krista Moore Show. I just want to welcome you all to Denver. I have a little makeshift studio here. As you see, it's not my normal studio back in Raleigh, but I'm on a girls' retreat and the show must go on, right? But I'm excited that you joined us today because I have an awesome guest. And actually, I've been wanting to interview Jamie for months, so we finally were able to make that work for us. Her name is Jamie Crosbie, and she is the president of her own company, ProActivate. She has an awesome career in learning and development, but also career counseling and recruiting. And hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you, Krista? Thanks for having me.
Doing great, thanks. I'm going to go ahead and just start out by having you introduce yourself to the audience. Let them get to know you personally, a little bit professionally. Just give us some background.
Absolutely. Well, to start off with, from a personal perspective, I live in Dallas. I have two wonderful children, Campbell and Caden, who are 12 and 11. I'm trying to put them in order of how I introduce them to you. I love to travel. I love being out in the mountains. Jealous you're in Denver on a girls' trip. And I love Telluride as an example of that. Just spent some time there. And from a professional standpoint, Krista, I am the CEO and founder of Career Builder. Of ProActivate. And prior to that, I was VP of Sales at Career Builder and VP of Training and Development, and really initially started my career in the traditional staffing industry, leading sales and operations. And through that experience, as well as serving as VP of Sales at Career Builder, I saw a gap in the market for leaders of sales organizations to really protect and propel their revenue as it relates to talent. So that's how ProActivate came about 14 years ago.
Yeah, and we have a similar path because I was in corporate America as a sales leader and started my company 16 years ago. It's interesting because almost for the same gap.
Yeah.
I was, I felt that there was a need for sales leaders to up-level their their management skills, and didn't realize how important their role was in organizations. So that's interesting. But what I'd like to be able to help our audience with today is to understand how can they attract and retain great talent. What would you say to that?
Well, I would say first, it really starts with understanding the big picture. I think there's a few parts to that. So what is great talent to your organization? But even prior to that, Krista, it's identifying your own vision of their organization first and really their story in the marketplace. So we have to know our culture of our company, our story in the market, in order to go out and really attract the best of the best talent. We're not looking for people that are looking. We're looking for people that are working and winning. And so
yeah. I was just thinking when you were saying that, what really struck me is that is the first step, right? You've got to establish who you are as an organization and what your culture is so that you can attract the type of talent that you need.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you think a lot of companies do that?
I don't think so. I think what happens, especially in sales, is we feel this urgency that we need a salesperson, and we just start looking, and we're not even sure what we're looking for. And so we don't have really a clear process to identify what top talent is or to qualify them. It's sort of the feeling we get in the moment because salespeople are selling themselves in the interview. And so we like them and we think, oh, I could hang out with them, and we hire them and then kind of repeat that. And it's not to say we don't do it well sometimes, but it's not really a clear method or process. It's sort of we got lucky.
Yeah. Tell me about a good interview process.
Absolutely. I think that's critical. So obviously there needs to be more than one step so that we've seen people on a consistent basis. But again, for sales, it's very important that we dig very deep into the qualification process beneath the surface, because salespeople are selling themselves. So our process, I would say, is a great step in the process, in that I think you need three components of a great qualification process. One, based on skill set. And everyone seems to do that pretty well, as you know, Krista. It's, the typical sales methodology, sales metrics for success, the success they've had in the past, things like that. Do they have the right skill set for that role specifically? However, one thing we often overlook is mindset, and 80% of success is based on mindset. And so we have to be able to really interview and qualify talent based on that grit, so to speak, that just I'm going to win no matter what, perseverance, optimism, those things that make up mindset. And so a behavioral-based interview based on skill set and mindset, and then I think it's critical to do a simulation evaluation of some sort. So to see them in action, to role play key components of the sales call process, or have them do that. And if it's a leadership role, to engage in true leadership scenarios and see how they would handle them.
Yeah, that's great. And I really like the whole mindset concept for a moment. And I'd love to talk a little bit more deeply about that. I think traditional interviewing, we don't go there.
Correct.
We're interviewing with the resume, and we're interviewing around past skills and experiences and likability.
Yes.
And I remember doing that when I was a new manager. If we got along and they seemed friendly and we could hang at the office, then everything's going to be great. But that obviously wasn't the best way to do it.
Yes, I've been there, Krista. I used to say, if I could see myself enjoying sushi dinner or lunch with this person, I could do this,
I also got really poor direction from the business owner that I worked for, because in those days, and this wasn't legal, I'm sure, he would say, all I want you to do is go hire young, attractive women.
Right.
And show them the ropes. So he was trying to get me to hire women and teach and train them kind of how I did it. And I call that the Pied Piper sales manager, follow me, do as I do. And I learned the hard way that that's not sustainable.
Exactly. You've got to have a sustainable, replicatable sales model, not just for the sales process, but for the hiring process as well.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that we teach a lot at K Coaching for the hiring process is to do a lot of upfront screening, like whether it's a phone screen or if there's typos on that resume, I tell people just toss it in the garbage, right? So from a recruiting and a recruiter's standpoint, what advice would you have for business owners that are playing that role as recruiter and that front end first steps? What would you advise them?
Well, one thing I would say is definitely going back to knowing your story in the market and your culture and your competitive differentiators as it applies to acquiring top talent, because truly this is one of the most important sales pitches you've ever made too. You're looking for people working and winning who are doing well, where this would be a next step or an upgrade to their career. They are not the ones applying on a job board that are unemployed. And so again, if you want to really expose yourself to the 95% of the people plus, that are doing well, it's really the first conversation is not necessarily screening them out. It's trying to court them. And that's what we do at ProActivate, is courting these people on the behalf of our clients. But it's really critical at first to have conversations about, your story and seeing if they might be interested. Then if they are interested at that point, I would suggest doing the quick knockout factors. And okay, great. And without it sounding just like this. Do you have this, 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 and this? And then scheduling that next step. So our process before we ever submit candidates is an hour and a half to 2 hours, but that could never be in one phone call with a working and winning salesperson. So broken down. And the first thing truly is just trying to attract and court them.
Yes. And then I would imagine you're at a point where you have the cream of the crop, so to speak, or the most compatible candidates to present to your client. And if someone wasn't using a recruiter, they should be doing the same thing.
They absolutely should. So they should go through the exact process, and that's why I'm explaining it, because, you know, some can't. Well, traditional recruiting is different. It's much more expensive than our model, but some can't afford a recruiter. We honestly don't even call ourselves that, but
Yeah.
some can afford that traditional model. And that you have to go through the same process. You have to go through a really great qualification process. We talk to a lot of people and just bring the 3 best of the best to our clients for each open role. But that's what I would suggest as well is qualify several people and then pare it down to the 3 best of the best that, you know, not just that you've spoken to. Again, remember the pool you're swimming in or fishing in, so to speak. Because you don't want to be hiring the best of the worst. And that's what you're doing when you're only going toward routes that supply unemployed candidates.
Yeah, what would you say to businesses that feel as though they're in an industry that's not very glamorous, that it's difficult to attract fresh, new sales talent, and maybe their current sales organization is very seasoned and kind of retiring? I mean, how would you offer any advice on how to best make that shift, as well as how can they somehow attract the talent more than they think they can?
So I think that's a really great question, because, you know, a great industry, a booming industry is helpful, but it certainly is not the only key factor in getting that talent. One of the most important things, and I keep going back to this, but it's truly understanding your story in the market. What separates you as a place to work? So you don't have to be in the best industry, but you do need to be able to say why people like working there, and be upfront and honest too. If you're really trying to transform the culture of your sales organization and get some new energy, tell them that this is a transformative role. And we're looking to build and take the company to the next level. And that's why I'm reaching out to you. If this is something you'd like to be a part of, let's talk further. So people like to, you know, people leave their job because of their boss most often, or they can upgrade their career to the next level, or they see a better career progression in the future, or it's a cultural upgrade of some type. It does not typically have anything to do with the industry itself.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that some of the people that are on the line were taking notes as you were describing that, because you were explaining it well in terms of how they can communicate the opportunity to someone that might not see it because of the industry. It's more
Right.
selling the opportunity because of the company and what the company would be able to do for them and do for their career.
Exactly.
I want to go back to the whole mindset conversation for a moment. And you used the term behavioral interviewing, and I remember learning behavioral interviewing at one point in my career, and it's very different than traditional interviewing.
Yeah.
And what I learned from it is you can get to the core of the individual if you do behavioral interviewing, opposed to the on the surface, you know, just talking about the resume. I want to share, I've just thought of the story. So this independent that I had worked for 10 years was purchased by a large corporation, and they had behavioral interviewing as part of their interview system. So I had to learn it. And as I'm interviewing, I would send the top candidates, just like you're talking about, to my boss. And then he would send me a voice message and tell me on a scale of 1 to 10 how that interview went, or how he felt. He was scoreboarding them, which I liked that. But I kept getting zeros. And I'm thinking, what in the world am I doing wrong? I mean, I might have interviewed 100 people and sent him 3, and he's given me zeros on the top 3. And it was because I wasn't focused on mindset. And he was able to pick up on these little things in these interviews. And so I said, show me what you're doing. And I sat down with him, and this one candidate, I thought she was the best. And I said, I want to see you interview her. And he asked her 2 or 3 questions, and I don't know what the question was exactly, but somewhere along the lines of, how would your mother describe you? All right.
I love it.
And she said, oh, my mother would say I'm a pain in the ass. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if that's how your mother describes you. So
this is going to be much worse. Yeah. That's the best. That's the best you're ever going to see her, by the way. This was your first thing. She told you that. Yeah.
So when she's answered that way, he looked at me and I looked at him and I thought, okay, she's not a candidate. And then I know that sounds a little harsh, but that was my first example of kind of mindset or behavioral interviewing, whether that's the type of question you would use or not. But anyhow, why don't you tell us some questions and describe maybe some situations or questions that really get to kind of the core person so that you can better understand them.
Sure. So, mindset and behavioral-based interviewing is really the idea that past performance indicates future performance. And so whether that be on the skill-based part or the mindset-based part, really asking for scenarios from past experience helps us have a true indication of what could and should be expected to come in the future. From a mindset perspective, it's really important to identify the qualities of the mindset that are important. So I would look at things like perseverance, for example, determination, optimism. And so for perseverance, as an example, tell me about a time that you have had a huge challenge and how you kept focus and kept yourself going. Or, tell me about a situation in which you really had to overcome an obstacle and the entire process from beginning to end on how you did that and what that looked like and the outcome of that. So it's questions to really dig under the surface to understand those qualities that really make up someone's mindset and the way that they think and therefore behave.
Yeah, and you refer to this peak performance mindset model. Tell me more about that.
I think of that, Krista, as really living the life we were fully created to live at the highest level. And when you have a peak performance mindset, you're at your peak, so to speak, and you're engaged in a higher level of thinking. So just, this is something I'm very passionate about. Just to frame it, naturally every day we have 60,000 thoughts. And without operating or engaging in a peak performance mindset, 80% of them are naturally negative.
Wow.
And we don't even know it. So part of this whole mindset, workshop or training or system is based on learning how to flip that script, creating awareness first to understand how we naturally do that, and then learning to engage in a growth mindset and think at a higher level so we can personally and professionally be at our best.
I feel often we get into ruts, right? Or there's so much repetition in our day-to-day activities. And many people don't focus on continuous learning and development. Do you have any recommendations for sales leaders today that might feel that way? kind of feel stuck in the rut and how they can start shifting their mindset?
Well, absolutely. There are, if you go on mindsetscience.com, there are a lot of books that kind of dig into each area of mindset growth that someone might need. So that's one area, just that our imprinted mindset, as an example, is really what comes from coaches or mentors or books or podcasts or things that we do to improve. So one suggestion would be to look at the area that you are in a rut and then find someone who's a little bit ahead of you in that area, ask for mentorship, or read from someone that you respect in that area, or engage in some e-learning or something in that key area. But what I would say in general, from a bigger picture perspective, is that most of us who lead organizations do an intentional job at providing training for our team in the area of skills.
Yeah.
And most people have never received development in the area of mindset, yet mindset accounts for 80% of our success. So it's really a critical area. So I would say, and I've done, mindset development for a group of CEOs, for groups of VPs of sales, for sales teams. Every single person benefits the same, and really anyone within an organization benefits. But what's incredible is when you pour into yourself personally in this area of mindset, it impacts your performance professionally.
That's right. And something that you might not realize, and I'm going to share it with you, and some of the audience members are familiar with this, but I've been focused on learning and development for, my entire career. And there's been different shifts and changes taking place just because of technology or just because of the training industry. But one thing that I'm really certain of is that the days of going, and I hate to even say this because we have an online learning platform that we have a couple thousand people that access, but now I'm saying, I don't know if that's the best way. And then they go to these conferences once or twice a year, and they go to a seminar for 30 minutes or 50 minutes, and that's the extent of it. And I'm going to focus in 2020, and we can talk more about this when we're together in Minneapolis in a couple of months. But I'm going to focus in 2020 on personal and professional retreats.
Fabulous.
Yeah, that's our whole, we're shifting our business model to retreats because I think it's how you get to that mindset. Yes. You've got to get out of your environment, whether you're in a group that know each other, like you said, teams of company, team, it's not really team building, but let's go through a process over a course of 2 or 3 days, very intentional, to break that down, to get to that core. So when you leave, you're leaving going forward with more purpose, more passion, more intention. And I want to talk more about that because I'd love for you to maybe host some with me on mindset.
Well, I love that, Krista, and what a wonderful answer to the question on what these CEOs, founders, can do to really get out of that rut. And it's intentional development. We have to do that for ourselves.
Well, so many people know that change is important, and they'll go take a course or go to a conference, and they'll be all excited, hyped up, and then they get back into their day-to-day. But I'm talking about transformational change.
Yes.
And here's what I also have discovered: women do a really good job of this because we take the time out to go to these retreats. Like I just did a retreat in the south of France called Be 10 Again, and it was women going back to when they were 10 years old and what they were doing for self-discovery on what they can do better or different now to move forward in their business and in their career. So that's a program. But it was transformational. And with Race to Amazing, the book that I published last year, the retreats that we're going to build around that align with self-discovery being the first step. And that's what you're talking about. It's about really getting to how do you shift that mindset. Yeah. Cool.
Yes. I look forward to hearing more about that.
Yeah, it'll be fun. And to everyone on the line, I mean, just stay tuned for that, because you're going to hear more about it at ABC when you see me speak in August, if you're all going to be in San Diego. And we're developing relationships with different retreat centers throughout the United States, and we're going to put our schedule together for next year and publish that soon. I also think guys need it, and I'm just saying, a lot of sales leaders that we work with are men, and they don't take the time out, like maybe I was saying about girls' trips, like
Yeah.
that women might. We have girlfriends to talk to help with our mindset. Guys, have a lot of weight on their shoulders.
Yes.
To be the provider, for the family and in their career, and to balance all of that. And often, they don't concentrate on their own self and self-discovery.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I think sometimes we see it as weakness when actually it's really what makes us much stronger and better and to be our best. But I think it's hard sometimes to just stop and get out of what we're doing and really allow ourselves to overcome limiting beliefs and break through and have transformation, to your point, true transformation.
Yeah, kind of once and for all,
Right. Yeah.
That's cool. Anything else you want to add to our conversation that you think would be valuable as far as hiring? We talked about hiring and recruiting. What about retaining top talent?
Well, one of the best ways to retain top talent, especially in the area of sales and sales leadership, is to ensure that they have a clear, replicatable method for success. So if it's sales, it's a clear sales process, that they've been onboarded and trained well, and that they have true sales leadership as support. The best sales leadership, are truly not managing things, but they're leading people and helping them change the trajectory of their success by being in the trenches with them and showing them how it's done and leading them through, helping them truly get more deals and things like that. So I think, that's a critical aspect of retaining great talent, is showing them success, having great examples of it. Also, do not keep C players on your team. It lowers the overall productivity of the team, and there's a 67% variance between poor performers and A players. So if you accept mediocrity, then you're setting the example that it's okay. So do everything you can to give them everything they need to be successful. But if they're not, don't keep them. Hire slow and fire fast.
Yeah, we always say, if you can't change your people, change your people.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know you probably know the statistic, or at least maybe close to the actual percentage, but I had read once, and I don't remember the exact number, but the reason that people actually quit or leave a job is high percentage because of their manager.
Oh, absolutely. That's the biggest number one reason.
Mm-hmm. And when I think about sales leaders, often they're wearing multiple hats. In some cases, they might even have a book of business. In other cases, they might be the business owner and the sales manager. And it's a big job, but I think it's probably the most critical position in any organization.
Yes. It is very critical, and it's very critical that it's intentional. A lot of people just kind of assume that a great salesperson will make a great leader, but that's not always the case, or necessarily typically the case. And it truly needs to be someone who really wants to impact lives and help people rise to the occasion and perform at a higher level. And so to do that, there's intentionality. There's one-on-one meetings, there's sales team developments, there's really developing your people. The way I got promoted at Career Builder, Krista, one day this CEO showed up at my office. And I had one of the top sales offices, and I was a regional leader at the time. And he said, if I go around to each one of your team members, will they know the number one thing that you think it would take for them to improve performance? do they know their #1 development area? And I said, yes, we talk about it weekly in their one-on-ones, and we practice and we role play. And he did that, and I got promoted.
Yeah, that's a great story, Jamie, because one thing that we teach an awful lot of is there's two components to sales leadership, if you want to break it down that way, is achievement, because you're, focused on the numbers and the financials and all of that. But the other is development. So it's achievement and development. And if you don't have a developmental plan for all of your sales team, each of them individually being unique, then you're almost not playing the role. It's your job.
Exactly.
Yeah. Great. Well, I loved our conversation. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to share this slide, and it's in the background, that is contact information, and maybe the best way to get a hold of you if someone wants to find out more about what your organization does.
Great. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. Definitely reach out via email or the phone number listed there to me directly, and I'd be happy to help.
Okay. Thank you. Have a great day. See ya. I just want to thank everyone on the line for joining us today. And don't forget to watch every week at Wednesday at 2 o'clock Eastern Time for the Krista Moore Show, when we bring you great guests like Jamie. Talk to you soon. Take care.